Good evening. This is Robin, nutritionist, and today we're going to talk about sex. I have with us Natasha Riley, who is a licensed sex therapist, clinical sexologist, and a pleasure strategist. And we're going to figure out what all of that means. I This is a can be a taboo topic, and I actually once upon a time had a class where people could register, and that people stayed away from because I think they were scared to come into that class. And so what I wanted to do was just have this interview and this conversation that people could watch and or not, but or no one would know they're watching. That way they could take have a part of the conversation. And those of you that are watching, if you do want to ask some questions or comments, we welcome the opportunity for you to put them in the chat, and we'll circle back and answer them for you, because when you're watching this, it'll be as a recording. So again, I'm Robin, nutritionist, and I am all about serving women over 40 as it relates to our health and nutrition and even personal development. And sex, to my understanding, is a part of life. We None of us would be here if not for sex. And they tell me that regular sex is healthy, but I also know some women are not having regular sex. So we're going to talk about it. Natasha, let's just start with, what is a sex therapist, a sexologist, pleasure strategist? Like, what do you do? And I'm going to actually take a sip of some drink while we're doing that. I don't know if that's unprofessional, but we're talking about sex. We're going to get loose.
Absolutely. So, really, what I do on the clinical side is I help anyone that comes in that has some type of concern that is sexual. That's really all it is. Most therapists, I don't want to say most because a lot of people have like their niche, right? So there's trauma and all of that. And then there are some that are just general, they'll take anybody. But my private practice specializes in Black couples and Black women as far as it goes with sex, with intimacy, communication, and also pleasure, which doesn't always have to deal with sex, but we'll
Okay.
talk about that.
Okay. And so how would a person know if they need a therapist or could use a therapist? What should somebody look for to think, okay, yeah, I need to talk to somebody about that?
Well, what I have found is usually the case is someone will have a main therapist. So they'll have a general therapist, whether it's for their anxiety or depression, or they just needed someone to talk to. And at some point, the conversation about sex comes up. And sometimes depending on people's backgrounds and their comfortability, they're not necessarily comfortable having those conversations. They may talk around the bush, or they may flat out say, you need to actually go find a sex therapist. I'll give you a referral to have those types of conversations. So then that's where they will come to me and they will have conversations about, it can be orgasms, it can be lack of libido, it can be desire, it can be just being on the same page as far as our levels, or we as a couple are uncomfortable having the conversation. And so we need to figure out how to facilitate that type of conversation because we've never talked about it before. And so we just kind of dig in immediately. And majority of my clients are also seeing another therapist with when they're seeing me, because I'm very, this is the thing that you want to work on. This is the thing that we're going to focus on. If there's anything deeper or different, I want you to continue to see that particular therapist for those things.
I think I can see often how couples can have different desires, and maybe and women will say the woman wants something, she's not willing to say it. So I
Mm-hmm.
could see why that could be necessary. How do you know if it's a clinical therapy type of a conversation versus something that's medical? For example, if a woman is having vaginal dryness, not because she doesn't like her partner, but because it's hormonal, do you find that and you say, hey, let me send you to somewhere else to talk about that? Or how do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I ask all those questions. I ask about cycles, I ask about medicine, I ask about when's the last time you had a conversation with your doctor,
Okay.
just in tandem, right? Like we can still work together, but I want you
Okay.
to also get the second opinion over here. So I do have relationships with OBGYNs. I have
Okay.
relationships with pelvic floor physical therapists because
Mm,
sometimes that's where you need to go. Sometimes
yes.
there may be a traumatic response to sex
Yes.
that your mind is like, it wasn't that traumatic, but the body's like, oh, but honey, it was traumatic. And so now every time you go into that act, I tighten up or like I just don't want to do that, which then increases the anxiety. So I deal with
Yes.
the anxiety piece and the somatic piece, and I send them over to a pelvic floor physical therapist to start working on the actual pelvis part.
Pelvis. And so those that are listening, because I know this, yes, there is the pelvic floor physical therapist that can help with some of what goes on in the vagina. And then there's hormone specialists that can help you with that. But the trauma or the baggage that comes along with, that's where maybe then I'm hearing you say that therapy could come in. Do you find that the majority of us have some type of trauma or baggage when it comes to sex? Is anybody just free about it?
I mean, there are select people who have had those types of conversations with their parents. They know what to expect. They can tell you what they want. They are very open about it. So there are those people, but I would say because I work majority with Black people,
Okay.
majority have a issue with even saying the word sex or saying the word vagina or anything like that.
Really?
And that was something I had to learn on my journey is because I've gone to school for this and, trained for this. I'm always like, well, everyone knows this.
Right.
I'm gonna go big or go home. And then I have people come in who need basic conversation of anatomy. And I had to really remind myself, Natasha, we gotta dial it back. Everyone is not where you are at. Everyone's not as comfortable as you are. And so you need to ask the right questions to gauge where they're at so that you're giving them the support that they need.
Do you feel like, or have you noticed, and I don't know, like women that are younger? So now I think I have a 19-year-old, and I feel like she's more exposed through
Hmm.
music and television and all these things, where saying the word sex is not as taboo as someone in my generation. Do you find that younger women are more open about it, or no?
I do because in my 9 to 5, I work on a college campus.
Okay.
And then in my private practice, most of my clients are in their 40s and their 50s. So I would agree that there is a bit more exposure now to this generation as far as having conversations about sex, understanding what it is that you want, being comfortable saying certain things, just because they're exposed to a lot more than on the other end of the spectrum, where it's like, we don't say that, we don't talk about that. And I also think that the generation before recognizes how detrimental that was with not
Mm,
being able to have conversations with their mothers or their grandmothers or aunts about sex and their body. So they've taken it upon themselves to learn more and to have those conversations with their children. So it is different.
yeah, I have the conversation with my daughter, but my mother has always had the conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that then would make me more free, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
that what you're finding? That if the parent was forthright with talking about it and not making it taboo, then the child or now the adult is more open. Is that how it?
Yeah, I would say more open, not necessarily more free, but the conversation isn't as uncomfortable.
So should we just say what we want? How does that go? If you're with your partner, are you recommending like, okay, if they're not doing something that we like, are we supposed to tell them or just
Absolutely. Absolutely. How else is it going to get done?
now that's where I can see you don't want to hurt their feelings, right? If you're, 'cause how are you telling them?
Mm. So when I talk to my couples, one of the things that we discuss in the very beginning is that we may not always like what we hear. But
Okay.
if we are dedicated to being in this relationship and not just having that surface level interaction, but actually being vulnerable and understanding that just because they say something that I don't like or it may hurt my feelings doesn't mean they don't love me, and it doesn't mean that they're trying to hurt me. It just means that they're giving me a criticism that I need to take into consideration. And so maybe I need to pause for the cause when they give me the information to assess and process my emotions, but they're telling me because they want us to come to a solution. So that's where each individual, you have to check your feelings and have your own separate support so that when you are getting this feedback, you can receive it and not take it personal and be able to work through it, because you want both parties in the relationship to be satisfied and to be pleased.
So when you say you're a pleasure strategist, what does that mean? That you're helping us? What does that mean? I don't know if it's unprofessional that I'm drinking this, but it tastes so good. So what does it mean to be a pleasure strategist? What is that?
So basically, I help women identify what pleasure is in their life. A lot of times people connect automatically that pleasure has something to do with sex. But if you look at the definition, it just has to do with your satisfaction, your enjoyment, and your fulfillment. And 9 times out of 10, if you have a conversation with someone, especially a Black woman, their life is not fulfilled
No.
or satisfying or full of enjoyment. And so I create strategies to help you put action into your pleasure that's outside of the bedroom. And the more that you create pleasure in your day-to-day life, you're going to have a better sex life. It's just the byproduct of focusing on yourself and prioritizing yourself, just like you would prioritize everyone else.
I like what you said. I wrote it down. So pleasure is the satisfaction and enjoyment and fulfillment in or outside of the bedroom. It's really just
Mm-hmm.
your whole life. And yeah, I think Black women and a lot of women that I talk to are just not content, or they are dissatisfied
Mm-hmm.
with a part of their life. And maybe sex is being one of them. How important is sex? I mean, when I say important, they say that supposedly if you have sex, regular sex, you live longer. Is it really important?
It is important because that's another way that you're intimate with your partner. Right
Okay.
now, if you are by yourself, you may say that it's not really that important, but there is still this level of intimate, vulnerable connection that you have with someone when you are that close to them that enhances a relationship. It's not the only form of intimacy, but it's included in the intimacy circle.
Okay. When you say the intimacy circle, what else could be construed as intimacy, just so that those that are listening can, because people think, oh, intimacy is just intercourse. Like, what are some of the other
Mm-hmm.
things that could be, intimate with you and a person or your part, not you, but the people listening?
So I am very much a definition person. So I've looked up all these definitions, and intimacy really is just the ability to have closeness with someone or yourself. So that could be emotional intimacy. I want to feel safe enough to cry around you, to be able to share how I'm feeling around you when I'm having a good day or a bad day, sharing my dreams. It could be just physical intimacy. I like to be close to you. I want to hold your hand. I want to be able to see you. It could be, I just need your help around the house. I want you to be intimate in the way of service, being able to help me clean up or taking just a load off of my shoulders so that I still have the energy to show up in the physical bedroom so that we can
Okay.
have that type of intimacy.
And what do you do, or what would you say to someone who one of the partners, they just don't want to do it? One, because there's different sex drives
Mm-hmm.
in the relationship. Maybe one has a higher sex drive and the other one doesn't. What do you do
Mm-hmm.
with that?
Now, for me, I do not think that anyone should be doing anything that they don't want to do, because
Okay.
there's negative results that come out of that. I know that some married couples say that we are married, and so that I sacrifice and I do things that I don't want to do for the relationship.
Usually it's the woman, because if the man
Very
don't
much
want,
so.
yeah, because the man don't want to do it, don't do
Very
it.
much so. I mean, I've had instances where men have done it too, but I think that that ends up leading to resentment. And it's not necessarily a choice. It's kind of just, it's the emotions that bubble up of when I don't want to do something, I'm doing this thing. And then there are other things that I'm asking you to do. And it's like, I don't want to do it, you know? And then
Okay.
there is, because there isn't 100% consent,
Mm-hmm.
your body starts to distrust you, because the
Oh,
body is like, I'm not really into this. So if I'm not into this and I'm not lubricated and now it hurts and I'm just
right.
in my thoughts while I'm going through this, now it's messing up with the relationship because your partner knows when you're not into it. The energy is felt, you know? So now
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, I don't feel comfortable doing this with you because I can tell that you don't want to do it. And I feel like I'm making you do something that you don't want to do. And that's not the person that I want to be. So it
Okay.
leads to a lot of negative effects if you're doing what you don't want to do. So I don't recommend that.
So two things. This is, can a man, I mean, if when you said you've seen men do it even when they don't want to, how? If they don't want to, they don't get erect, or can they still get erect and they don't
Oh,
want
they
to?
can still get erect. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Even if,
they can still get erect. Now there is the physical body and then there's
uh-huh.
the mental piece of it, right? Like they could still physically get erect and
And
not
no, and don't want to?
not
Really?
mentally want to be in it. Yeah, because it's a physical body response.
Okay, hold up. Because we always think, and I think I always have this issue when talking about men. We think, oh, if it's erect, they want it. You just assume if it's erect, they want it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're saying just because it's erect doesn't mean that they want it. But if it is erect, well, because I think in the morning they have morning wood. And so I don't know that they want it. Maybe they do. But you're saying that it could actually be erect and the man doesn't want it.
Right. I mean, because if you think about it, if and I'm just going off of the males that I have known in my life, right? They could be walking down the street and see something that in their eye, their conscience is like, oh, I like that, and get hard, right? They could be
Right.
sitting in a classroom. Think about high school boys. They're sitting in the classroom and their genes rub them a certain type of way. Now they're erect. Doesn't mean that they want to have sex. So just because their body physically does what it does
Uh-huh.
doesn't mean that that's something they want to do. That's how the nuance when males get into situations and they're like, I didn't want to be in that situation, or
Yeah.
something happened to me that I didn't want to happen to me. There is this idea of you're not able to be the victim, and that's not necessarily true.
That's powerful because I've heard it where men have been molested and they would say, yes, my body, they felt like their body betrayed them because they
Mm-hmm.
did get erect, they didn't want it.
Right.
And you're right. I've heard, I don't, I mean, I've heard it in those cases, but I guess I think like if I guess I don't want to bring my husband into this. I won't because he's somewhere around here. But I would just think that, oh, if I see it, it's like that, then it's calling me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
guess it's not always calling me, but I'm like, hello, if you're calling me, but
I'll answer.
yeah, I'll answer. But I guess it's not always because I guess
Right.
in the morning they have like morning wood,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's not always calling you, but it's just a
Correct.
right. Or
Yeah.
the other side of it is a man. So I think as women, if the man doesn't get erect, but he wants to do it. And
Yeah.
that's so is that where that erectile dysfunction comes in? Because like mentally they want to, because
Mm-hmm.
I think as women, we think and y'all chime in if y'all are listening that we but I've always thought, okay, if it's erect, they want it. If it's not, they don't. And
Yeah, that's not always the case, right? Because we do have the medical things, which again, I always have a conversation with your doctor, but also their body can have the trauma too, right?
okay.
So imagine being a man and you go into an instance with someone that you're interested in and you're nervous and you can't get up and now you feel like you've let somebody down. Now,
Yeah.
every time you get into a situation with that person, you're going to be anxious and your mind's going to go back to that moment where it's like, I remember when I couldn't do that and I was just disappointed and I feel like I disappointed that person. And now
Mhm.
because you're in your head, your body's already, it's done. You know, I always tell people, if you know that you're in your head the minute that you walk into, it doesn't have to be a bedroom, but wherever you are, if you are in your head and you're listening to those thoughts and they're so loud, you've already tapped out and you might as well just go ahead and say, like, maybe we should cuddle, maybe we should have a conversation. I need to do something to get out of my head, because you're not in the body if you're in the head. And the thing about sex is the senses, being in the body, feeling the
Yeah.
things, and you can't do that if you're in your head.
You made me think of a couple of things just about bringing back to intimacy, because in those cases, if that does happen for the man, being able to be honest and have honest conversation and be able to feel like they can share their reality and their
Absolutely.
truth is where intimacy comes in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you said something else that made me think, oh, that being in the moment, that's a for women. Now I'm on the I don't know what men are doing, but for women, I've talked to enough women that maybe they're having sex and they're like, oh, I got to do the dishes and I got to do
Mm-hmm.
this and I got to do that. And so we're not always in our head. Uh, I mean, we're not always in the present moment, we're in our
Mm-hmm.
head. Is there a way to be where you are? Like if you're having sex that you're not washing the dishes in your mind or doing your to-do list, is there like a strategy for that, or is just practice, or what is that a thing?
That's something that has to be done outside the bedroom. Like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So it's not that you're just not present in the bedroom. You're probably not present in anything that you do. You probably live in your head. And so you walk around on a day-to-day basis, not really seeing what's going around, which is where the pleasure strategies come into play, right? How do we get you here in the present moment? How do we teach you ways to do that? How do we get you grounded? How do we get you not so fixated on what has already happened or the unknown?
Uh,
That's where the strategies come in of, let me focus on myself and the things that I need. And that starts to have a ripple effect on everything else that goes on around you.
tell me this. I don't know. Let's see if I can ask this question properly. As women, we we look at our bodies and we may be dissatisfied with what we see. Therefore, that messes with our ability to feel sexy.
Mm-hmm.
And we may want to hide and we don't have confidence. Do men care about that though? I mean, as much as we think,
No,
that's what I heard. That's
no,
what I heard.
no, no, they do not care. Now, there are some that they have their preferences, and that's fine. But 9 times out of 10, if you've been with your person for a while and you've had kids and y'all have grown and everything like that, they don't care, right? They see something that for some reason we can't see. They're not worried
Okay.
about all that.
Thank you for saying that. I know some of y'all listening really needed to hear that, because as women, I just do it the other day. I was like, look at my this and my that. And I'm like, why? This is crazy. And he acts like it's not crazy. like I'm like, are we looking at the
Hmm.
same thing? And so I've heard that men, they don't, yeah, they don't, they just like what they like, or if they
They
like
do.
you, then they like you and they
Hmm.
be a part of that. So that's or you. That's interesting. So what so I heard you say we need to somehow speak up for our pleasure, but in a case where we can't, could is that where you could come and help a woman through being able to
Yep.
stand up for herself with
Yep.
regards
That's
to
where we start working on, okay, well, we have to figure out what you want, because it's not fair to ask someone, will you figure out what it is that I want? And as
oh,
you figure it out, I'll give you the hot or cold. It's not fair to them. You
that's
need
good.
to know. And that's also giving away your power. I tell my clients all the time, you should be the first to know. You shouldn't be the last to know. So even if you're going to the doctor, it shouldn't be, I'm going because I have no clue what's going on in my vagina or with my body. It's like, no, I've been paying attention to my body. I'm in tune. It smells like this. It feels like this. And I absolutely know that something is wrong. Like, you
Got
shouldn't
it.
go to the doctor and they're like, hey, did you know that XYZ is going on? It's like,
Right.
oh, I had no clue. No, like, I
Yeah,
need you to know what's going on with your body because it's yours. You don't give
makes sense.
anyone that power.
Okay, that was a gem. Those that are listening, like we got to know what we want, and if we don't, that's our job to figure it out. Because, and you're
Mm-hmm.
right, we do give a lot of power to make me feel good, make me
Mm-hmm.
happy, and we have no idea what that really means. Or sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
stumble upon it because they may do something. We're like, okay, I like that. Do that again. but to know what it is that our desires are, but they change.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why this is a forever journey, right? We can't say that, okay, I am 32 and so this is what I like and I never have to do the exploring or I don't have to be curious. No, because 32 and a half, you could like something completely different. And you need to know that.
And I think about that with food too. Like there's a sidebar, but with food, it's like your body could eat shrimp, and now 10 years later, shrimp makes you nauseous.
Absolutely.
So it's just us being open to growth, the evolution of who we can become, and
Hmm.
having the confidence to speak on our desires, which is huge. The confidence
Hmm.
to stand up and say, and even like as a black woman, we're always like the loud, or supposedly the angry black woman, or loud, or what have you. But in so many cases we're not. When it comes to this, and sometimes in the bedroom, we're not
Hmm.
speaking up. And a lot of women are not speaking up. So we need to own our bodies.
Yep.
And but where do you get this confidence from? Like if you don't have it, it's like, where does it come from? Can you practice confidence? Because is it
Yes,
either you have it or you don't?
it comes from within, right? It comes from believing that everything that you need is within yourself and
Okay.
everything that's external is just extra. It's icing on the cake. But you
Okay.
have to be willing to put in that work to believe that you already have everything that you need and that you deserve to be here, right? Confidence really just is rooted in self-love.
Okay.
That's all it is. And so how do I do something every day to show myself that I do love myself? And when I
Okay.
love myself, I only deal with people that show me the same love that I show myself because we teach people
Ah,
how to treat
how to
us.
treat us.
So if you're not engaging with yourself, you're not talking to yourself, you're not treating yourself with love, then you're going to get that same energy because they're like, "Oh, well, she don't even do that for herself. So why am I going to do that?"
Ah, that's good. Y'all listen. That's good. It's treat your own self with love, so that other you set the tone, you set the
Mhm.
boundaries, and then also if you are there in the presence of someone who is not treating you as you would treat yourself, or as you would have someone treat you, then you know how to send them on their way.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so with our time is just going by really fast. With pleasure, we deserve it. That's what I hear you say.
Yes.
And but what will you do with trauma and baggage? Because again, we've most of us have something in our playing in the background
Mhm.
about sex. We have to really, I guess, get into that basic, get over it. What do you do about this trauma?
It's not necessarily a get over it, it's more of a get through it because we never know what's going to activate us to remember the things that we've been through. It's not possible, but it's
Uh,
not a either or, it's a both and. You can go through and unpack your trauma and work through that, and you can also have pleasure because you don't have to do anything to have pleasure. You deserve pleasure because it's your birthright. You're here, you deserve pleasure. And you can do both at the same time. I think a lot of people feel, well, I have to do this work first, and then I have to go do this. It's nothing for you to make a decision today that I'm just going to take 5 minutes and I'm going to breathe. That's
mm,
pleasure. It's nothing for you to say, you know what, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go sit in the sun and I'm going to let the wind, I like to say that it kisses your face. That's
mm,
pleasure, right? So, really identifying what you consider to be pleasure because it really is it's the basic things that make you feel good, that make you feel satisfied. It could be a blanket. I love soft things. So having a soft blanket, it just makes me happy. It makes me satisfied. It could, my cup. This cup makes me so happy.
me
It's
too. I'm gonna take another.
right, the juice, it makes me so happy, and the glitter and the cheetah print, and I got my cheetah print glasses. Those things really make me feel satisfied and I enjoy them. That is part of my pleasure. Now, my the extent that I will experience pleasure may be different than other people because I've been on this journey longer. I've done this a little different. So my pleasure is a little bit more elevated. I'm beyond the foundational and the basics, but the
Okay.
basics are so simple They're so simple, and we tend to make it hard. And we make it hard because we make ourselves feel guilty about the simple things.
Yeah. So what I heard you say is that pleasure is our birthright,
Mm-hmm.
and it is up to us to find out what that is, be it
Mm-hmm.
outside of the bedroom, inside the bedroom. It's your job to know what you like.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you have a partner, if you're not satisfied or getting what you feel like you want, then it is your responsibility to articulate that in a kind way, in a loving way,
Correct.
with the best intent,
Correct.
but being able to say that. And if that person, if there is a deep intimate connection, hopefully we'll be able to hear that and receive that and support you, because I genuinely believe when people love and like each other, they want to
Mm-hmm.
serve that person.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we are responsible for saying what we want. And if you don't, that's your fault, right? If you are not,
Right.
if you did not articulate, they're not a mind reader. Because I think that's like, as women, we just want them to know. But
Yes, and that's just not a real thing. And I always say it with the nicest intention that if you are having bad sex, that it is on you,
uh
because you either don't know what you want, you
uh
are fixated on being a people pleaser,
ah
or you are afraid to communicate what you want. And all
I
of
like
those are within your control.
that. That's if y'all were having bad sex, it's on you. I like, yeah. Oh, okay. That's true.
Hmm.
I think so. And then what if you're having no sex? Is that on you too? Like, what is
No,
it?
now that's not necessarily on you. Please have standards, but I
Okay.
mean, you can still have that pleasure alone, right?
Yeah.
Like why are we going along not pleasing ourselves? Because that is also how you learn what you like. That's how you learn that your body's changed, is by having that solo time.
Interesting. So you recommend masturbation?
Oh, absolutely.
You said that like for sure. Like, oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. It's so many
Really?
benefits to it. You can't catch an STI. It puts you to sleep. It decreases
Hmm.
stress. It helps you build that self-love for yourself. Absolutely.
Do you recommend toys, or what do you? How does this work?
All
How
of
does
it. All of
all
it.
of it?
I think that it's really important to build a relationship with your fingers, because sometimes
Interesting.
we can get so heavy on toys,
Uh-huh.
and you're not going to get that same thing with your fingers, right? Also, when you use your fingers, that's something that you're able to teach somebody else. Well, like, I like it soft, or I like it rough, or I like it in circles, or I like when whatever, you're able to talk someone through that. Compared to a toy, it's just like, just do this, put this here. But I do think that self pleasure shouldn't always be about orgasm. It should be
Okay.
about that relationship with yourself, right? That self love, that I am providing myself again with a pleasure from the inside. And
Mm-hmm.
I love myself enough to allow myself to feel this and give this to myself and fill
Hmm.
myself up in that way.
Last question,
Mhm.
perhaps. And statistically, I hear that, I don't know if this is true, like most women don't have an orgasm through vaginal penetration.
Correct. It's about a little bit more than 50%.
So most women, I'm just trying to, so if inserted into something, but put penis in there, most women do not have an orgasm through, you call it penile penetration.
Penetration. Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Then the orgasm comes from clitoral stimulation. That's where.
There are lots of orgasms out there. It
Is
can be
it
from the clitoris, it can be from anal, it could be from
really?
breast stimulation. Yeah, it can.
Teachable.
I
Okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah, that's a
have
whole.
I
That's a
have
whole.
had experiences just by putting my foot in a shoe. So,
Really?
yes, but that is my relationship with pleasure, right? Like when I was saying my relationship with pleasure is a bit more elevated than
Girl, I'm
other
about to go put
people.
my shoe on and see what happens when we get off this phone or this call.
It was
Like,
it was a shoe that I really liked. It fit my foot just right, and I was just so happy and excited to feel it. Like, it turned me on to be
Wow.
putting my foot in this shoe. Like, I loved it that much.
But you
So
had
when
like an actual orgasm, like, like
yes, I didn't have an actual orgasm, but my clit definitely started tingling.
on a, I heard that.
You can orgasm from breathing, right? So
I need some next level stuff. I want to put my foot in the shoe and just have a good time.
you can Kegels, you can orgasm. I can't do too many Kegels.
Really? I
Yeah.
think you know what I'm learning in this life is that just expand and open your mind. Because I think all of us have a limited box
Mm-hmm.
in what we fit in. And then, and it's just time to explore and expand if you want to, but we're all a work in progress. That was interesting. Seriously, when I go leave here, I'm gonna put my foot in my shoe, see if I can get it going with my shoe. So thank you so much, Natasha. I know our time is wrapping up. That was fun, and we could have this conversations for hours, but so
Mm-hmm.
this won't be forever long. But you have a podcast.
I
Tell us about the podcast and how
do.
do we find it? And I'll put it in the show notes or the down bar description and all of those things. But tell us about the podcast.
Yes, owning pleasure as a Black woman. It is one of the projects that I have been the most consistent on outside of seeing therapy clients.
Oh,
We're 70 something episodes in, and it
wow.
literally just walks you through how to experience pleasure outside of the bedroom on a day-to-day basis.
Outside of the bedroom. I love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of action steps because I am a firm believer that we have conversations and we know that we like to take in information, books, podcasts, workshops, all the things. But if
Hmm.
you don't actually do anything about it, then nothing is going to change. So I always make sure to provide action steps. And I always remind people that I truly appreciate you listening. But my goal is for you to experience a change from this episode. So if you listen, do something with the information. Don't just listen to be listening, even though I appreciate anyone that listens.
Got it. And the name of the podcast is
Owning pleasure as a Black woman.
Owning Pleasure as a Black Woman. So I will put that down below. And then you are able to coach
Yes.
women all over.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I will
Yes.
also make sure that I put your contact information and just all
Mm-hmm.
the information if someone wants to get in touch with you or follow you. And then you all that are listening, make sure if you have questions or comments. Again, this is a taboo subject, perhaps. So sometimes people are scared of such a topic.
Yes, absolutely. If you are scared, shoot me an email or, slide into my Facebook messages and,
Yeah,
I will find a way to get you that information, whether it's a podcast episode or a YouTube episode,
that would
something
be
of that nature. You'll get the answer.
because what I'm taking away, and the biggest thing that I want to reiterate is that pleasure is your birthright.
Absolutely.
And so, and what I know is that people are in pursuit of pleasure, and we find pleasure, but it may not always be in a sustainable way or the best way. Because I'm a
Correct.
nutritionist, and I know that folk find pleasure in carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
Yeah, so a lot of folks, and that's not always long term the best place to find pleasure. There are other ways. So that's a whole nother conversation. If you all that are listening want to connect on the nutrition side, I'll also have my information down below. And I love talking to, again, experts outside of food and nutrition because though that's my expertise, I know when I
Mm-hmm.
deal with women, we're multifaceted. We have all kinds of things
Yep.
going on, and we're sexual beings, and we have eyes and ears and teeth and all the things. So I have experts that come in and talk about a wide variety of things. So thank you so much again, Natasha, for your time
You're
and
welcome.
just that powerful nugget that this pleasure is your birthright and we deserve that. And I think sometimes as women, we don't remember that. We don't honor that. And we don't speak up for ourselves. And we wait and we let things fester until it's like
Mm-hmm.
this explosion, not always in a good way. So, all right. Anything else you want to say before we go?
Thank you for having me. I truly
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
Yeah, this was good. I learned. I'm so blessed for the things that I get to learn. I'm about to listen. I'm gonna go put my shoe on. I'm gonna go put my shoe on and see how that goes. So Thank you so much. And I just want to say to everyone that is listening, eat well, think well, and be well. This is Robin and Natasha signing out off, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.